On the slide ruler, most of the scales are logarithmic. So by finding the distance between between a point, let's just say 2.5, and the point from the index to 2.5, by finding this distance, and then just adding it to another distance, to the point you really want, you come up with the answer. That was one of the first slide rulers or use of logarithms that they did. And then what the slide ruler ended up doing was they ended up using a second scale to do the measuring actually. So you're measuring how far on a ruler you've moved on the ruler. So who made this? John Napier came up, besides the logarithms, he actually came up with something called Napier bones, which you could use to add logarithms together. Then Edmund Gunter, he took basically a ruler and then just found the points matching it. Like the zero would be, the zero was zero, or the zero on the ruler was a log of zero, and then he put a 1 above it, and then he went through and marked those all off on a normal ruler. So, and I think this is pre-metric, so it's probably in inches, like a 1/16 of an inch was something, and then when you got all the way out to yard, the yard was 10. So starting at, it was just 10. So what he ended up doing was just did it on a ruler, so then his friends could use dividers, which looks like a compass, and they use them in maps all the time in navigation to figure out where you're at or how far you have to go. And that's what he did. Then we finally get to there we go. Then we finally get to William Otter. In 1622, he took 2 pieces of sliding wood with logarithmic scales on them and placed them next to each other, and notice he could just slide them down and get the answer by adding the logs together. That is what basically your C and D scale on here does. So if you just slide it down, in theory they should slide, depending on how much overspray I had on my. So here's one ruler and here's the other ruler. So you measure. You're just saying, okay, I'm 1.5 on the one ruler, and I'm using D as a second ruler, and I'm going to go 2 units down on C and find out where I end up. So I end up at. So I'm at 1.5 on D, and the index 1 is lined up with the 1.5. And then I move down 2 units on C and find out I'm at 3. So I'm just adding logarithms together. No different than if you took one ruler and you added 5 in, you took one ruler at 10 inches, you took another ruler at 3 inches, and you laid them together, where would you end up? 5 inches plus 3 inches is 8 inches. One of his students, this Richard DeMoran guy, took credit for it and actually created a pamphlet that said he made the slide ruler, and there was a little back and forth about it in the history book, and our author actually mentioned it, and it took a little while before the credit was actually given to William. Then this Aberdeen Matt Mineham, in 1850, he added a couple more scales to it, and then he put a sliding cursor, and the French army loved it and issued it to all their gunners, because with the Haitians charging at you, because this was during the German Franco-Prussian War, with the Haitians coming down at you guys at the French army, they didn't have time to do the long division, so they started using this to calculate the ballistic paths of the artillery. And then that's pretty much where the slide ruler ended up in 1850, and then about that time is when it got really, really popular. What was its impact on math, science, and in society as general? One of the things that amazed me when I read the book was that it was used by the Army bombers in World War II to calculate, again, they're calculating the fall of the bombs. You remember from general physics, you got an aircraft going over here like this. Oh, in a wing, and it drops a bomb. In theory, the bomb's going, without air resistance, the bomb's going to end up exactly where they're right above the airplane when it hits the ground. Now, you start factoring air resistance and some other things into it and wind speed, then this formula gets a lot more complicated. And so the bombers are using all that with their special slide ruler that they had created for it. It was a slide ruler was carried on every Apollo mission to the moon for a backup. And if you ever watched the Apollo 13 with the big disaster, you'll see those guys trying to figure out their burns and their loops around the moon, and when they had to be burnt, when they had to restart the engine using a slide ruler. Most engineering projects in the first 7 years of the 20th century were accomplished